Being the only son born with a crest in House Gautier would be the dream of any young man in the land of Fargus. With this crest, you are held in great esteem, you become the rightful heir to your family's region, and you will have countless options as you search for a suitable wife to carry on your family name. And the best part of all, you don't even have to be the eldest child, as long as the eldest child wasn't born with a crest. Life is easy for a child born with a crest, or at least that's how it probably appears from the outside looking in. But as we quickly learn from Sylvain, it's not quite that simple. And so today I want to talk all about the character of Sylvain and what made him into the womanizing scoundrel with a heart of gold that he is in Fire Emblem Three Houses. To keep things simple though, I won't be talking about anything that we learn about Sylvain in Three Hopes, because honestly, while this game does give us a lot more context into a lot of the characters that we know and love, I think it would be better to focus on what we know of the original iteration of the character. So, like with any character we look at on this channel, I think it's important to start at the beginning. Sylvain was born in the imperial year 1160 as the second son of Margrave Gautier, with his only known sibling being his elder brother Miklan. And to say that their relationship was strained the moment Sylvain was born would be an understatement. And so I think that to truly begin understanding who Sylvain is, we need to take a deep dive into the dynamics of House Gautier. Throughout the course of Fire Emblem Three Houses, we learn in no uncertain terms that in the land of Fodlan, crests are everything and play an incredibly important role in an individual's social standings, to the point that if you were born into a noble family without a crest, then you were all but worthless as an heir. And Sylvain's older brother Miklan discovered this very quickly. Miklan, while being the oldest son of Margrave Gautier, was thrust into the shadows simply for the fact that his baby brother Sylvain was born with the minor crest of Gautier, with crests being believed to be blessings bestowed by the goddess. And so despite the order of their birth that would matter a lot more in most contexts, Sylvain was immediately slated to be the next Margrave of House Gautier in his brother's stead. This then led to his brother holding a very deep-seated resentment of Sylvain, simply for the fact that he was lucky enough to be born with the prestige of this crest. We learn through Sylvain's B-support conversation with Mercedes that as a child, Miklan actually made numerous attempts to take Sylvain's life over the nature of their respective births and how this affected their father's view of them. Unsurprisingly, it's this fractured relationship with his brother that I think that we can easily attribute to Sylvain's hatred for the class structure in Fodlan and the weight that these crests hold within this social hierarchy. While very little is explicitly said about Margrave Gautier himself, I think it's safe to say that he played a very crucial role in shaping who both Miklan and Sylvain would grow up to become through what I imagine to be two very distinctly different parenting styles that differed in one key way between the two of his sons, which was how demanding he was of each of them, leading him to have a rejecting, neglecting parenting style with Miklan, also known as an uninvolved parenting style, and an authoritarian style with Sylvain. According to the American Psychological Association, the differences between these two parenting styles are very clear-cut. In the rejecting, neglecting parenting style, the parent or caregiver is unsupportive, fails to monitor or limit behavior, and is more attentive to his or her needs than those of the child. Whereas in an authoritarian parenting style, this is when the parent or caregiver stresses obedience, de-emphasizes collaboration and dialogue, and employs strong forms of punishment. Now, to infer that Margrave Gautier, having quite literally disinherited Miklan for not being born with the goddess's magic seal of approval, was unsupportive or didn't care enough to limit the behaviors of Miklan, and wasn't very attentive in general to the needs of his his eldest, while simultaneously putting an immense amount of pressure on his preferred heir, is an understatement to say the least. And so when Sylvain expresses that he understands why Miklan tried to kill him when he was younger, I believe him. Because Sylvain, while he definitely had to bear the weight of his family on his shoulders, and don't get me wrong, this created an incredible amount of resentment with him too, the fact of the matter is that at least he was shown he had value and a place in the family. Whether it was for the right or wrong reasons is a different story entirely. It's clear that Sylvain had eventually come to some kind of internal resolution regarding his brother before we actually have the opportunity to meet him in Fire Emblem Three Houses, where Sylvain states that his brother has been disowned and that he must be stopped for being the petty thief that he has become. It's clear in the bow with Miklan itself that these are nothing short of Sylvain's attempts to rationalize what is happening. And so while Sylvain does undoubtedly hold resentment towards his brother for having treated him so poorly for reasons that are completely out of his control, I think that this scene in particular, when he's actually fighting Miklan, sums up their relationship quite nicely.
Why have you come, you crest-bearing fool?
I'm here for the Lance of Ruin, Miklan. Hand it over. I don't want to humiliate you, but I will.
Hurry up and die already. If not for you, if it hadn't been for you...
Shut up! I'm so tired of hearing that. You've always blamed me for something that isn't my fault.
Sylvain stating that his brother's hatred of him stems from something that isn't even his fault to begin with is a perfect introduction to one of the most interesting aspects of this world. And while oftentimes the game frames, at least at the beginning, having a crest as this great blessing and source of strength, through the eyes of Sylvain, we are introduced to just how burdensome and painful it can be as well. It's entirely possible that had Miklan been the one born with a crest instead, that their relationship could have been entirely different and way more brotherly. But that's not what happened. And should you choose the Blue Lion's route, Sylvain is all but guaranteed to be in the party for the fight with Miklan. Sylvain sees what his brother has been pushed to do, and sees that the jealousy over having something as trivial in Sylvain's mind as a crest quite literally led to the death of his older brother. And so I think it's pretty fair to say that his deep-seated hatred of crests comes directly from his experiences with his brother, and this in turn began creeping into most other aspects of his life in one way or another, and most viscerally how this affects Sylvain's social self, or how he believes that the people around him see him. Now, if there's one aspect of Sylvain's character that on the surface seems the most synonymous to his character, is the fact that he's a laid-back guy who doesn't put in as much work as the rest of the students at the Officers Academy. And I know that the idea that Sylvain will flirt with any woman that has a pulse, except Leonie, apparently, is a well-trained joke throughout many of his social links, with him acting as a sagely figure, talking to women when interacting with Dimitri, his weird rivalry with Lawrence, or how his reputation precedes him in pretty much all of his interactions with the female students of the academy, with one particularly funny one being his interactions with Flame. Not all of these moments are exactly funny. For example, while he could be perceived as being played for a laugh when he's described as shallow by Hilda or disingenuous by Dorothea, and let's not even get started with the fact that when he was 8, he seemingly came on to Ingrid's grandmother, oftentimes he's able to shrug these accusations off, again, just comedically, framing them as a joke. But as we dig deeper, we see that he is, in all actuality, probably internalizing each and every one of these interactions. What could cause Sylvain, a young boy who is loathed by his eldest brother and only valued for his crest by his father, to be so incredibly flirtatious with an astonishing amount of women, and even go so far as to flirt with a grandmother? Well, let's think about the 5 basic needs of all humans that are outlined by Dr. William Glasser's choice theory, which are love and belonging, power, freedom, fun and survival. According to Glasser, most all human behaviors can be traced back to one of these basic needs. And so in the case of Sylvain, I think it's pretty easy to say that these flirtatious advances are Sylvain's attempts at looking for someone, anyone, to provide him with some semblance of affirmation, some love, belonging, and value as an individual that his family just never did. He will shower women with compliments and gifts just so that he can have the opportunity to woo them. However, this nearly always backfires on him once again because of the sheer fact alone that he has a crest. In his support conversation with Dorothea, he admits to her that he is constantly skeptical regarding whether someone likes him for who he actually is or for his crest. So while on paper he has an incredible amount of women who would love to be with him, and he could get married at the drop of a hat if he wanted to, he has been conditioned to always wonder whether they truly like him for who he is, or whether they simply want their future child to be born with the minor crest of House Gautier, because a lot of times the latter may be more incentivizing for the people who are approaching him. And so I think that Sylvain highlights the position he is put into best when he says this to Mercedes.
Here's the short version. I hate crests. Even though having one is supposed to be such a great blessing, mine has ruined everything. Miklan was heir to our house. Then I was born, and I became the heir because I had a crest. That made my older brother jealous enough to want to kill me. And every woman in Fodlan wants to have my little crest baby, so they can join the nobility. Yeah, there you go. That's what it's like to have a crest.
I mean, it's unsurprising that deep down he is truly angry with the hand he's been dealt. He's been raised in an environment where he quite literally can't trust the intentions of anyone around him, all because of a part of him that he has absolutely no control over whatsoever, which I think is something that a lot of people can relate to in one way or another. It's no surprise that initially he hated Byleth for growing up in a vacuum, not only not knowing that they had a crest, but even for the fact that they didn't know crests existed in the world. How is it fair that something that has caused him so much pain and controls his entire world and his entire being could be so absent from another person's life? Sylvain molded a persona for the benefit of those around him, to not only fulfill his needs of love and belonging, but also in order to simply cope with the expectations that have been thrown on his shoulders and to keep his head down as best he can. He resents women wanting to marry him for his crest. He resents that his brother wanted to kill him. He resents that people act like the only thing that makes him special is his crest. And so to combat this, he flirts and he slacks off. He's lived with the weight of his family on his shoulders for so long that he has put on this persona as a defense mechanism because, as he puts it to Annette, he would rather have people think he's dumb than to expect too much out of him after she discovers that he has a natural inclination towards understanding magic and reason in their support conversations. Simply put, Annette realizes that he's just pretending not to understand anything, and when he starts lowering this mask even more to the other students at the Officers Academy, he admits that he doesn't like when women throw themselves at him, and the only reason for him to put forth true effort and rise to the occasion isn't for some half-baked ideations of increasing his status or being seen as some great war hero. No, Sylvain will only put forth effort when the very few people he trusts most and considers to be his friends truly need him. With that said though, I don't want to make it seem like relaxing and taking a break are bad things in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes you do just need to slack off a little bit, take a load off, and maybe grab a snack. And the best kinds of snacks to get are from this week's sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Tokyo Treat is a monthly Japanese subscription box full of popular Japanese candy and snacks, such as Japan-exclusive Kit Kats, ramen, and so many more. Whereas Sakura Co is a monthly Japanese subscription box full of authentic, traditional Japanese snacks straight from Japan's local artisan snack makers, and both are delivered straight from Japan to your doorstep. Essentially, both Tokyo Treat and Sakurako's goals are to share Japanese culture to the world through the medium of snacking. So if you want to enjoy pop Japanese snacks, you can choose Tokyo Treat. But if you want more of a traditional Japanese tea time, you can enjoy a nice box of Sakurako. And both boxes come with these incredible 24-page cultural guide booklets, so that if you're afraid of not knowing what snacks are in the box, these booklets will explain everything about each and every snack in there, as well as having a lot of information about Japanese culture. And so while I was sifting through the Tokyo Treat box, the snacks that stood out to me the most were the Halloween Tahato caramel corn, which gives you exactly the kind of crunch that you would want from a snack like this, as well as an amazing caramel flavor, and the Halloween pizza corn snack, which, as you can expect, tasted like pizza, which who doesn't love a good pizza flavored snack? And when I got to the Sakurako box, I had to start by checking out the surprise piece of tableware that they include in every single box to see what I got. And I was really excited to see this ornate dish that they had included, because I love the colors, I love the designs, and it's gonna be a great addition to my collection. And then I moved on to try this tart, which is full of juicy Ibaraki strawberry jam and was absolutely delicious. It had the perfect crunch to it, and the strawberry jam was out of this world. And the best thing about so many of these snacks in both the Tokyo Treat and Sakurako boxes is that, just like with this Isa Suzumi Manju, you have enough to share with your friends, and let me tell you, this is something that you will want to share because it is filled with a delectable bean paste, and honestly, between that and the moist dough, it is an amazingly refreshing snack to have at any time. Every single box of Tokyo Treat and Sakurako has a new and unique theme every single month. And this month's theme for Tokyo Treat is Spooktacular Snackin'. And the theme for this month's Sakurako box is Ibaraki Harvest. Make sure to check the description down below and use the code listed for $5 off your first Sakurako or Tokyo Treat box. But now, I think we should check back in with Sylvain. With Sylvain's life having gone the way that it's gone, I think that it would not have been surprising had he become a very self-important individual who would look down on those who could be perceived as beneath him or his social status as a way to rationalize his value to himself. But if we pay attention to him and how he interacts with the rest of the cast, we can clearly see that that's not Sylvain at all. In the year 1956, Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist, conducted an experiment where he brought several children into a room where he had built models of 3 mountains with key differences. One had a cross on top, one was covered in snow, and one had a small hut at the crest. Piaget had the kids walk all around the models of the mountains, and once they had seen them from every angle, he sat them all down at the table, one by one, and put a doll on the other side of the table, so that only 1 or 2 of the model mountains would be visible from the doll's perspective. Once everything was set, he asked the children to indicate what they believed the doll could see from where it was sitting. This experiment, though imperfect, showed us that oftentimes by the age of just 8 years old, people will, generally speaking, have the ability to take the perspective of others. Though we've since found that even children younger than 4 years of age can potentially have this ability. And I know what you might be wondering, well, how does this tangential story apply to Sylvain? Well, I bring this story up because as I was reading through an article written by Dr. Lauren Soro, he raises the point that while it's interesting to think about when someone starts to be able to take the perspective of others, it's more interesting to determine when and why they stop being able to. The world of Fire Emblem Three Houses is full of prejudice, generalization, marginalization and stifling class structures meant to keep people who are deemed to be lesser by those in power in their places. It is shockingly easy to maintain the beliefs of the people around you, whether or not these beliefs have any objectivity to them or not. And this is what I believe is oftentimes one of Sylvain's greatest strengths throughout the course of the story, is his ability to be empathetic and to see past these class structures. And quite frankly, this is a quality that we don't really see him grow into. It's something that's kind of always been inherent to his character from the time we meet him at the beginning of the game. In Sylvain's B support with Ash, we hear them discussing what it means to be a knight, and Sylvain expresses that it doesn't matter if someone is an ugly old man or the cutest girl you've ever seen. It's a knight's job to help them. So often, we see people surprised by Sylvain's more virtuous and compassionate side, just like Ash was. Just because he slacks in training and has a tendency to flirt far more than most, and does it to an incredibly inappropriate degree, all of these things make sense when we take into consideration how much weight he has to carry from his past. Now, that doesn't excuse how poorly he treats many of the women he interacts with, not by any stretch of the imagination, but at least now we understand where he's coming from. We can see through his relationship with Felix that he would do anything to protect his friends from harm, and when Felix tells him to get his act together so that he doesn't find himself in an early grave in their A support, he seems to take these words to heart. While I could go on and on referencing his sincere kindness towards Bernadetta's writing, him working with Marianne on her smile, it's his interactions with Dedue that I really think highlight this aspect of perspective taking. As we are well aware, so many characters throughout the course of the game treat Dedue poorly just for the fact that he's from Duscur. Not by his character, not by his actions, simply for where he was born. But not Sylvain. Sylvain has the sense that it's ridiculous to judge someone based on the actions of another just because they were born in the same place. And while something as simple as treating Dedue as a person like he should be treated instead of as the enemy shouldn't be perceived as some noble act, nor does Sylvain treat it like one by any means, this shows his willingness to attempt to see the world through someone else's eyes. And unsurprisingly, this is, from what we see at least, the start of a true friendship with Dedue. And so in the pair's B support, Dedue expresses that he has heard rumors that Sylvain is indefensibly worthless, and that he had tried to correct the people saying this to no avail. However, Sylvain's already very well aware of these rumors, and has accepted that these misunderstandings are inevitable based on his previous actions. People will hate Dedue unfairly for who he was born as, whereas Sylvain hates what he was born as, and has acted in a way to make people believe that he is worthless. The fact of the matter is that the people of Fargus's general perceptions and evaluations of a character like Dedue are entirely incorrect and foundationless, if we're completely honest. They're just coming from a place of hatred and revenge when they judge someone like Dedue. Whereas with Sylvain, he understands that they have foundation to think of him the way that they do, even though in all technicality, and we understand that they are incorrectly evaluating his character for the sheer fact alone that he doesn't let most people see that more positive side of him, keeping it instead stifled away so that he doesn't have to deal with these unwanted expectations of the people around him. Sylvain is a character that has distinct flaws that very much stem from how he has decided to cope with his familial issues and his being born with a crest. But what I think is interesting and illustrates to us better than anything is what happens to Sylvain after you beat the game. The game describes him as the sincerest of knights, which once he becomes Margrave Gautier in all of these endings is a point that really rings true. It is his goal to build a more positive relationship with the people of the Serang region, while also pushing other nobles to understand that crests are not as important as they have believed them to be for so long. Sylvain lived a life where he felt like he could not be himself and could not trust the the intentions of anyone he met with because of growing up being the crest-bearing heir to a noble house. And this is a fate that he did not want his children to ever have to face. In the ending where he marries Mercedes, the game states that he was able to build a loving and happy home, and when he eventually died, he was able to succeed where his father had failed, and his eldest son, who bore no crest, became the next Margrave Gautier. In all of his marriages, whether it is to Dorothea, Mercedes, Ingrid, or Byleth, he stays loyal to his wife for the rest of his life, regardless of his flirtatious past, illustrating without a shadow of a doubt that Sylvain has always simply needed someone to just accept him for who he is as a person, not as a noble. Though it is worth noting that should he end up alone, he would still accomplish the same things and be widely revered as a lord, but men who cheated on their significant others in this timeline would have become known as sons of Gautier, which, I mean, I suppose those are the logical consequences of his actions. But the ending that warmed my heart the most can only happen within the Blue Lion playthrough, and that is learning that Sylvain and Felix became such incredibly close friends that they died on the same day, illustrating just how serious they were in their support conversation here.
Well, I'm really not trying to get myself killed before you. You know that, right?
I know. But I'm tired of these close calls. You have to stop fooling around. Take your training more seriously. You can die whenever you please, but I'm not going down with you.
Okay, I get it. Once I've healed, I'll get my act together.
Then I hope you have a speedy recovery. Sylvain, thank you.
That's what friends are for, Felix.
Sylvain is an incredibly well-written character because the game never pretends like he doesn't have inherent character flaws. They throw it at our face at every chance that they get. Even with these blatant flaws, it does provide ample context as to why these flaws are present in the first place, and is able to show us that a lot of the time, if you want to truly understand who a person is, you can't boil them down to only one aspect of their personality, because if you do, it's likely that you'll be missing a lot. Sylvain's behavior towards women is reprehensible, but I think it's clear in his epilogue that when given the opportunity to grow and really commit, whether it be to a cause, a societal reform, or to another person, that he will not only do so with open arms, but he will do everything in his power to act in a way that is best for the people around him as he takes steps to build a better future. But that will do it for this week's video, guys, and I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on Sylvain, and would you like to see me cover more Fire Emblem content on this channel in the future? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, why not liking the video, why not subscribing to the channel, and why not even ringing that notification bell so you never miss another upload. And if you want to keep the conversation going, make sure to join the ThoughtBubble community Discord. Link to that is in the description. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a fantastic rest of your week, and why not even a fantastic rest of your month. And I will see you in the next video. Later.